Hello and welcome to the Unique CPA with your host, Terrell Turner. Bridging the Gap 2026 is coming soon, so we're bringing you conversations from last year's event. Stay tuned for the thoughts of top voices in the profession as we look forward to BTG Charlotte. The Unique CPA is brought to you by randycrabtree.com. Log on to learn more.
The Unique CPA is also supported by Magnetic. Magnetic's AI-prepared 1040s are built for accuracy, with every return checked before it comes back to your firm. Learn more at magnetictext.com.
Welcome back to another episode of the Unique CPA podcast. We are at Bridging the Gap 2025, and I have the pleasure of sitting down with Questian. Questian, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am great. Well, what I will say is today is my birthday.
Today's your birthday.
It is. So I am really good.
Yeah. You're working on your birthday.
Yeah, but I will say this is a labor of love because I get to talk with people like you. Then this is a great birthday gift.
Good. I'm happy to spend it with you.
What I've been talking to people about is their experience with Bridging the Gap. So take me back to what was your first Bridging the Gap conference you attended?
This year.
Okay. All right.
My first
awesome.
one. Yeah.
What I want to ask is, what did people tell you before you got here that made you interested to say, hey, yeah, I want to show up?
Everyone was like, this is my favorite conference. Best conference, favorite, can't miss it. And I wanted to come last year, but I was on parenting duty, so I couldn't make it. So that's the running theme is this is my favorite conference of the year. And it's one that I can't miss. And it's smaller and more intimate, but also the sessions are really amazing and very different than what we see at other conferences.
So now that you've been here, we're in day 2. So has it lived up to the expectation that was set for you?
Yeah. And I actually was thinking about the name and that it's Bridging the Gap. And I feel like it really is bridging the gap between some of the conversations that we have at other conferences and the topics that we have and what, Randy and Trimerit have curated for the conference itself. So I mean, it's been amazing. I love it. So I'm very happy that I came.
Awesome. And now also your first conference, you did a panel here. So give us a sneak peek into how that panel went. What was the topic?
The topic was ADHD and basically, I can't remember the exact title of it, sorry, and how ADHD and some of the traits that come along with it can actually be our superpower. So all of the panelists have ADHD and I moderated and I also have it as well. So we talked about our stories, then we talked about the traits that mostly they talked about the traits that they have that they see as superpowers rather than things that are hindering them in their career. And one of the things I felt like was really important to point out is we had 3 extremely successful panelists who have made incredible careers for themselves, not despite their ADHD, but in a lot of ways because of it too.
I think that's a really interesting point because a lot of times when I hear people bring up ADHD, it's either to excuse some behavior or as like a put down. But I love the fact that you look at it and say, hey, there's actually a benefit in this. Mm-hmm. So I guess for yourself, like what was that journey like for you of having ADHD, being in the field of accounting, which accounting is known for being very structured, very consistent, very methodical. So what has that journey been like for you?
I got late diagnosed, so I didn't know. And I think this is very common for a lot of women. They get diagnosed with ADHD later. So I was actually talking to a colleague who happened to be a male, and we were very similar in a lot of ways. And he was telling me about his diagnosis. And he had said that his parents actually knew that he had it when he was a kid, but didn't tell him until he was an adult. And so then we had some very similar traits. And I was like, this sounds really familiar to me. And so when I went and got tested, afterwards, I started doing research and talking to my doctor about kind of how it manifests and specifically how it really manifests in women, because it can be very different than it is in men. And it was like a moment where I was going, my whole life makes sense to me now. Like now I understand why I do the things that I do and why I am the way that I am. And so it has helped me. I was already naturally taking measures to try and cope with some of the challenges that I was having, but it really helped me just kind of take it to the next level and fine tune some of the processes and the things that I do. One of the things actually have a hard time at conferences because I can't sit still for too long. So it's like I can go into a session and then I have to get up and I have to move around. And when I'm at home, it's great for me having a home office and working from home because it gives me the ability to be kind of up and down and moving around a little bit more because I do kind of have the hyperactive piece of it. I was actually sitting here as we're filming and I'm like, oh, I'm shaking the entire tablecloth. Like I should probably stop doing that.
I'm sure our awesome tech crew behind the scenes can fix that. So I would say, or at least I'm hoping that they can. So no worries about it. Talking about ADHD in the profession and just, I think life in general is not something you usually hear about at an accounting conference. So what do you think made Bridging the Gap more open for that conversation to be talked about, like from the stage?
Yeah, I think what made Bridging the Gap more open to having those conversations is part of Randy's story. And that was something that he wanted to do in the conference so that as a career or for our careers are able to maintain our mental health and well-being while still running our firms and our businesses. And so having, I think, his life experience and then creating a conference, it's my takeaway from what he was saying in his keynote and what I've seen at the conference is I want to do this differently. And so they're intentionally choosing topics that maybe you wouldn't see at another conference because maybe it's a little bit taboo or maybe it just doesn't fit in the typical mold. And it's like things that are not supposed to be talked about or said when you are in a professional environment, which is, I think, one of the amazing things about the conference is that it's bringing those topics to the forefront because they do need to be talked about. And you go into one of these rooms and you have those conversations and it resonates with so many people. So it's really important that we're talking about and presenting those topics along with, technical pieces of training and, firm running as well.
So I guess as you guys were doing that talking, you're going through this panel, was it interesting thing of like just seeing light bulbs go off for people in the audience as they were able to connect with your story?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, it was really interesting because there were a lot of people in there. You could see them shaking their heads or they seemed to feel very comfortable kind of like yelling something out here and there. At one point, Shirley stood up and she's like, can I say something? Can I add something to that? And so I was like, okay, come on, go ahead, throw it out there. So yeah, you could definitely see it resonating. And then the feedback after. So we stuck around and talked to people afterwards. People stop you in the hall and you realize how important it is just to not feel alone in those areas. And then it resonates. And I think there's even scenarios where there were people who were like, I've not been diagnosed. Somebody came up to me and said this, I've not been diagnosed, but I could really relate to a lot of things that Sharon was saying. And so I think I'm going to investigate this more. And so those conversations need to keep happening so that people can kind of, like I said, it doesn't change who we are. It's not, I kind of look at it as it's not a label. It's more like a user manual, right? So it's like having an understanding of that piece of yourself and how your brain functions and the chemical reactions that are taking place just helps guide you and helps you understand why you're making certain decisions the way that you do.
Awesome. I love that. And I love that about this conference because it does allow people to start having those type of conversations and take the impact that we feel here and to do other things outside of the conference. And I think you're a great example of that. I mean, you and many others are doing some great things. Like there's a podcast that you're doing. I see you online. There's an impact that you're making. So can you tell us a little bit about kind of your driving force behind the impact that you're doing within the industry?
Yeah. So Nancy McClelland and I have the podcast She Counts, and it's a podcast focused on women's topics in accounting. And we want men to listen to because we need male allies. And so it's really it's a passion project to kind of highlight what women in our profession are dealing with and going through and to make sure that they don't feel alone. Because at one time when she and I were starting our own firms, these were conversations that we wanted to be having with other people. They were things we were thinking about then as we started attending conferences, the conversations were happening like on the back end in a WhatsApp chat or at a conference. And so we ended up like on a Zoom call with each other. And I was like, we should really start a podcast so that this is out there, because like these conversations need to be out there for everyone, because there are plenty of people running firms alone or working in firms and feeling alone. And that just sense of like, I'm not the only one, and community is so important for there's data everywhere that talks about how important that sense of community is to eliminate loneliness and to feel like you belong. So that's why we're doing it. And we both really enjoy it. And it seems to be, I think it was really needed. We needed it. So
I love that so much, because even as I talked to Randy about like kind of his vision for this conference and just really the industry itself, of it really creating that place where people can start having the right type of conversations, and then also take those conversations outside of the conference, because you don't want it to be a situation where people are like, hey, I only talk about it once a year at this specific conference.
Mhm.
But I love the fact that the conference is encouraging people to go have those conversations throughout the year, because it is going to take a lot for all of us to collaborate to really change the profession. So I'm very curious for you, as just kind of, as you think about the conversations that you and Nancy have, as you think about the conversation you had with the panel, it's just kind of like, what do you hope that people who listen to the things you say, what do you hope they kind of walk away with?
I hope they walk away with a couple of things. I hope that they walk away feeling like they aren't alone. I hope that they can relate to and it resonates. We try to offer solutions. So in the podcast and anytime I'm speaking, I try to not only, if I'm highlighting a challenge, try to always offer solutions. So having takeaways in that sense as well. So rather than just going, oh, hey, I recognize that it's a problem for me too, and then not giving anyone any solutions or answers. And one of the things that we do on the podcast is we bring other people in who have more experience in certain topic areas. So for example, we had Lynette Osconnell come on because she is a burnout coach, and neither Nancy nor I should be speaking on burnout and how to eliminate it. So, but it's really important.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I love that. So final question I want to ask, and I've been asking everyone this. So, let's say you and I are sitting down with a person who's never been to Bridging the Gap conference.
Yeah.
And the topic of Bridging the Gap 2026 comes up. Why would you tell them they should show up to Bridging the Gap 2026?
I would tell them that they have to show up because number one, for me, the sense of community is incredible. The sessions are different. You're not going to find sessions like it at any other conference. Like I said, the sense of community is just incredible. And those are probably the two most important reasons to me.
I love it. Well, Questian, thank you so much for coming to hang out with me on my birthday. And
Yes, happy birthday. I mean, you get a built-in party tonight, right?
Yes, I am really looking forward to the party. So everyone who's listening to the podcast, make sure you look out for the photos that are going to come from the Enchanted Forest party. So thank you so much for listening to the podcast, and thank you for coming on and being an awesome guest.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us today on the Unique CPA. You can find the show notes for today's episode and book Randy for your next keynote or event at randycrabtree.com. Remember to subscribe and leave a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting app. And join us next time for more expertise and insights on the Unique CPA.
ProfessionalProductions.net